Hello and welcome to Community Matters. I'm your host, Gabriel Riviere-Reed. Shannon is away. The seeds for a brand new project in the city have been planted, and soon they will hopefully be blossoming. And joining me here to talk more about edible cities is Alain Daou. Welcome, Alain.
Thank you, Gabe. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you were recently at City Council to discuss a really exciting new initiative in the city of Cornwall. And let's start maybe with the background of what an edible landscape is.
Sure. So an edible landscape speaks to the incorporation of edible species in a traditional landscape design. Our approach is a little more of an ecosystems design approach. So we're using sort of lessons from nature that we can incorporate into our landscapes. So rather than a traditional ornamental landscape, we're just looking at spaces and trying to figure out how they can be productive. So edible landscaping is referred to in different ways: edible ecosystems, food forest. Essentially what we're doing is we're planting a microforest with different layers, so that have trees and shrubs, different herbs and vining plants, and all sorts of different layers that you would see in a natural forest system. But it's very intentional in design, and we're using plants that are productive for people. So food is definitely a big part of it, medicine and other plants that might support those species that are in the landscape.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about this specific project in Cornwall and how that came to be.
Sure, yeah. So it was in discussion for a few years. We've been working with the Transition Cornwall group, as well as the Social Development Council. Originally, several groups came together and formed the Community Garden Network, and so that's sort of where the project started. And then through several meetings with different organizations and companies within Cornwall, we decided to form, under the umbrella of the Social Development Council, the Edible Cities Project. And the talk, we had a community consultation back in October, I believe, September, October, at the Benson Centre, where about 40 attendees from Cornwall, including Mayor Bernadette Clément, attended, and we discussed the feasibility of edible landscapes within Cornwall. The feedback was really positive, so we decided to move forward with the plan. And now we're focusing on the Cornwall bandshell project, where we'll be installing edible landscapes on the east and west side. And we also have 10 raised boxes in the back of the bandshell where we'll be planting different plants as well. And that's serving as a pilot project that we'll be using, if successful, to propagate additional projects either along the bike lanes or in different areas within town where we find a need for this sort of thing.
Excellent. And let's elaborate a little bit more on this pilot project at the bandshell and what people are going to be able to expect. I believe you're hoping to have shovels in the ground by the spring and hopefully some plants blossoming in the summer.
Yes, absolutely. So currently, now that council has approved the project, we're raising funds. We are seeking sponsors, so if anybody listening is interested in discussing or hearing more about that, you can send an email to ediblecitiescornwall@gmail.com, and we are looking for volunteers as well. And you can visit our Facebook page to get all of that information. So we are raising funds now, and we're hoping by April or May to have shovels in the ground to get some fruit trees and preliminary plants in there. So the beds have already been prepped. Everything is ready to go. Once we have the funds and we have the plant material and educational signage ready to go, we'll have that installed in May, and we're always looking for volunteers for that.
Excellent. So you mentioned earlier the thought that's gone into this, obviously, in creating a mini ecosystem. So talk to me about that, how that process has been, and what sort of plants maybe people can expect to enjoy this summer.
Right. So some of the plants that we have in our list are things like mulberry trees, dwarf plum trees, cherry trees, and we also have shrubs like raspberries, and maybe lesser known things like Saskatoon berries or goji berries and things like that. So there'll be a big variety of well-known plants and maybe some things that people don't recognize quite as well. As we're installing these things, like I said, we're installing them in layers. So the trees go in first, and then the supporting species go around that to form an ecosystem that resembles a woodlot or a forest ecosystem. And the closest example would be the eco gardens that we have here in Cornwall. If you take a walk through there, a lot of those plantings were intentional, but they've ended up being very wild and they don't require any maintenance. So the design that we're incorporating is very much an ecosystems design in the sense that over time, the need for maintaining these ecosystems is reduced as the plants get established. So we do hope to have a visual design for community consultation available in February. So stay tuned for that on our Facebook page.
Excellent. And how is this going to benefit the community?
It's going to benefit the community in a lot of ways. So first of all, it is going to provide some food. Of course, we don't expect it to feed a tremendous amount of people, but the main benefit that's going to come out of these installations is education, and certainly a new way of looking at our urban landscapes. We're hoping for the beginnings of a paradigm shift that's going to assist people in looking at different spaces and seeing how they can be productive for the population there. It's going to serve as a gathering place for people to come and learn about edible landscapes, and hopefully it'll serve as a space where people might be inspired to incorporate edible landscapes on their own properties as well.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you once again, Alain, for joining me and for all your hard work with the Edible Landscape project.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.